So it all stemmed from this text message I got the other night. So this guy says, "That's the biggest bunch of bullshit I've ever heard. Everyone knows that if you're in restaurant management, you have to work at least 20 hours a day. There is no way to have a successful restaurant if you don't work 20 plus hours per day." Welcome back, everybody, to the Restaurant Growth Accelerator podcast. I'm your host, Andrew Scott, and I am the CEO of OwnerShift, which helps restaurant owners grow their sales, increase their profits, and have more freedom with their time. We've helped over 1,000 restaurant owners do this, and I come from a background of restaurant ownership, having 4 locations. Dave, my guest on here today, has had 2, and basically we're here to talk about a very, very important topic, which I know everyone's going to get really excited about when we say it, but it's about your mindset. So it all stemmed from this text message I got the other night, or sorry, it wasn't text, it was a comment on my ad. So it came in. So let me just share what it said, because I had an ad that talks about how you can actually have profit margins in your restaurant, 15, 20, 25%. You can actually work 35 hours a week on your business, still have time for your family, and be able to grow it. I was talking about how that's possible. So this guy says, "That's the biggest bunch of bullshit I've ever heard. Everyone knows that if you're in restaurant management, you have to work at least 20 hours a day. There is no way to have a successful restaurant if you don't work 20 plus hours per day." And so I was just really interested because he's like, everyone knows this. It's not possible. And so I just basically stepped back for a second. And I was like, how should I respond to this? But what I ended up saying to the guy is I said, I totally have been there. In my first year as a restaurant owner, I worked 80 plus hours a week because I didn't know any other way to do it. Right? So I did it. I grinded. And I kept telling myself, oh, anyone who works less than that, oh, they're not building their business. Oh, they're doing something shady. They're probably selling drugs out of the back of the restaurant. Or, oh, they're a big franchise, so they have all this ad money and everything's better for them over there on the other side of the street from me. And I could just do whatever. And so I eventually responded to this guy and said, hey, man, it's all bullshit until you actually look at your actions, make some changes, and then realize it was never bullshit. It was just what you were telling yourself because you didn't know how to do it yet. Right?
That's pretty succinct.
I thought so. But the reason I'm talking about it today on this podcast is because I was that guy. I was that guy for a lot. I was saying, this, competitor of mine that literally was across the street. I spent all my day looking across the street at this competitor and being like, how come they've got a line and we don't? How come they have customers coming in and we don't? What do they have that we don't? We're better and we're all this stuff. And the problem is that I actually needed to look in the mirror and realize how to make those things happen, right? Because it's just not going to happen for you. As a restaurant owner, you are in ultimate control of your destiny. You're in ultimate control of your business. And most people don't feel that way because they feel like, oh, this person quit on me and this thing happened. And all of a sudden, there was a snowstorm or, the tourist season died down or whatever all these factors happened. Yes, of course they do. But it's how you adapt to it that will allow your business to succeed or fail, right? So I compare this a lot to a weight loss journey, right? I used to say, oh, these guys that are skinnier than I was or fitter than I was, I used to laugh at them with their gym bags being like, bunch of meatheads. They don't have anything better to do with their time. I'm over here building my business. When in reality, I was hurt because I didn't look the way that they did, and I was trying to justify it and make myself feel better. So I told me that, oh, they must have all this time. They must have all this stuff that I don't, when in reality, I needed to actually stop shoving fast food in my mouth all of the time because I was too lazy to cook after I finished cooking for people all day, because that's what I did. I went home, hit a drive-thru on the way home. I needed to stop doing that. And you know what? I probably could have found a half an hour to work out or do some exercise. In fact, when I eventually was single and I was looking for a new relationship, I even took time in between customers to literally take bottles of vinegar in the back and do bicep curls. I found the time when it was of relevance and importance. So
when it's important enough. You
when
will find the time. When it hurts enough, you will make the difference.
So I know this is a very long-winded spiel, but it all comes down to our mindset. Now, I was going to look up a stat, but basically, I think it was like a 10-minute mile. Was that there? Anyway, there's this thing, and I'll have to verify this, but basically there
Robert
was.
Bandman, I think.
Yeah, so whoever ran the first 10-minute mile, everyone thought it was impossible, and then one
1 minute
dude
mile.
did it. Oh, the 1 minute mile. Sorry, not 10-minute mile.
Yeah.
You can tell I don't run a lot. But point is, the 1 minute mile. You think that it was impossible for someone to do that, and then as soon as they did that, they were actually there was like 10 other people that did it the next year.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
Because they broke the conception of what was possible. Now, let me ask you this. Was there anything different about that same dude before and after he did it? Right? Does it mean he was better in shape or not? I mean, maybe he trained a little bit more. Maybe he pushed himself a little bit harder. But once he wanted to achieve it, he did it. And then realistically, we have to understand that that was not a physical barrier that was there. It was a mental barrier.
100%.
He could have always done the things to make that happen, but he didn't until that time. That makes sense?
Yep, makes perfect sense. It's about having that false ceiling above you, right? It's having that lid on the jar. You're the fly in the jar, and there's a lid, and you keep running up against the lid, and then you do it so much that even you're so conditioned to that somebody takes the lid off, and now the fly can just jump out, but it doesn't. It doesn't even know how to jump any higher than the lid because it's been trained. Our mind has been trained to think that we can't go any higher than that. When the reality is there is no lid anymore. There's nothing stopping you from going higher than that. But you have to believe it. And what you don't know, you don't know. Just like the guy that made the comment on your post, right?
Absolutely. And so that's kind of what I wanted to talk about today, is that I used to believe all of these things that weren't true. I used to believe it was impossible for a restaurant owner to make more than, say, $100,000 a year, right? But it's not. I just didn't know how to do it yet, right? It's impossible for a restaurant owner to not have to work 80 hours a week. Well, no. I just didn't know how to do that yet, right? And so we have to look back, and I'll be totally honest, because restaurant owners, now, I love restaurant owners. You know, I have been one for years. You have as well. I love restaurant owners, but we're kind of dense sometimes. And I say that because we have to be stubborn enough. We have to be stubborn enough to push through all the shit we have to go through to make it somewhere good, right? And we're probably just built that way, whatever. But the point is, I don't know how internet works, in the sense of I don't know how the internet gets from wherever it comes from to my house. I know I connect to the Wi-Fi network and can plug my computer in or my TV into the router and stuff. I don't know where it goes after that, but it doesn't mean it's not possible. Right? I don't know how a plane's mechanics work. Doesn't mean I don't fly in planes. Doesn't mean it's not possible. But for some reason, as restaurant owners and business owners at large, we think, oh, well, I don't know how to do that, therefore it's not possible. It's a very self-limiting perspective that we put people in. Well, there's no way I could get my food costs lower than 35%. Is it really not possible, or do you just not know how to do it yet? And that's kind of a question that I think we have to do. And we have to look in the mirror, as Dave was singing earlier, the Michael Jackson song, Man in the Mirror. I'm looking at the man in the mirror. Something changes ways. Anyway, I didn't.
It is a great song.
Michael Jackson.
Everybody should listen to it. It is actually a really good song.
But the thing is, we have these self-limiting beliefs that are posed, and oftentimes we do it because we do it to make ourselves feel better. Because if we actually understood the gravity of our situation, it could be pretty damaging to our psyche, but it could also facilitate the change, right? If we realize, because it's craziest thing that happened. It's like the frog in boiling water. I had this one guy who hopped on a call with one of our team, and he was at, I think, 3 million in sales a year. And he was telling us about how one time he had worked with a marketing agency, not even a company like ours, not like a coaching company with a track record, but because he worked with a marketing agency once. He spent $2,000, didn't get any results. And so therefore he's like, I don't use outside help to help me with my business. That's that was a $2,000 lesson that he learned, and that was the lesson he took out of it, right? And so then
now he's going to apply that to 100% of his beliefs.
Yeah, and so basically, that one thing happened one time, and so then he had $3 million in revenue, and then the next year it went down to $2.5 million. He dropped $500,000 in revenue in 1 year, right? And then it dropped again down to about $2 million a year, and then it dropped again to $1.5 million. That's when he calls us, and my guys are on the phone with him. They're like, "Hey, man, so like, how come you haven't done it earlier?" He's like, "Oh, well, like." 2.5, like the dropping $500,000 wasn't too bad. Then dropping another $500,000. But now that I've dropped $1.5 million in revenue, now it's a problem. And I'm like, dude, like it's crazy how you condition yourself to think that was okay. And only now it's a problem now because you're not making money, and now because all of your fixed expenses are too high, now because all this stuff is happening. Now it's an issue. And so we asked him, why didn't you reach out for help sooner? It's like, well, one time I spent $2,000 and didn't get any results, so I didn't want to spend the money because it was too expensive. This dude literally lost
to $1.5 million. Like that
Absolutely.
is a gap.
But that's the way we think about it. Right? Because people then often try, say, like Facebook ads one time, and they're like, oh, Facebook ads don't work. Well, no, they work for millions of businesses. They just didn't work the way that you did. That would be like, who's the guy that invented the light bulb? What was his name?
Thomas Edison, 10,000 times.
Yeah. So basically, he just found 999 ways to not make a light bulb. If he had tried it the first time, it's like, well, I guess we're never going to have electric light. Just imagine what would have happened at that point. But so many restaurant owners call on the tail. They hire someone. The person that hires doesn't work. Oh, well, doing interviews with questions don't work. Or there's no good people that want to work. This is the self-limiting stuff that we put on ourselves. And so what I would ask you guys today is that if you're listening to this, we all have limiting beliefs. I, for the longest time, believed that I couldn't have a life with the business that I had. I believed that I couldn't make more than, say, $100,000. I believed that the most profit my business could ever make was 10%. Until I made like 24%. But that's the thing, is eventually I'm like, well, why can't it be more than 10? And so then I started making the changes to make that happen. Right? Because I didn't believe it was possible up until that point. But once I decided that I was going to find out, and I am a stubborn mother, and so I figured a way to do it. But, I had to decide that that's something that was possible, because if it wasn't possible, I wasn't going to do it. So there's a saying, whether you think you can or you think you can't, either way, you're right. So if you think your restaurant can be profitable above 10%, if you think it can't be profitable above 10%, either way, you're right, because then you are going to take the actions in accordance with that belief. And so what I would ask you as a restaurant owner today, what area of your business do you have a belief that is not serving you? Because we all have beliefs, but the question we have to ask is, how is that belief serving you? Is it serving you? That would be like saying all sun is bad for you because you got sunburned this one time. Then you'd miss out on all the fun things you can do in the sun, right? And I know this is a different example, but in your business, there's lots of things like, you can't hire the right people. Like you can never get your ticket times down below 20 minutes. Like I've had people tell me that. Oh, you can never get food costs down below 33%, right? Until it goes to 27. They have all of these limiting beliefs. There's no way I could ever leave the restaurant for more than, a couple hours at a time while we're open. I have to be there, right? All of these limiting beliefs. So, hey, real quick, what if you could identify thousands in hidden profits, optimize your food and labor costs, and know exactly what moves to make next to grow your restaurant business, all in less time than it takes to drink your morning coffee? That's exactly why I created the Restaurant Weekly Financial Tracker. It's free and available on the link that's in the description. Grab your free copy now and focus in on your restaurant's profitability today.
What I found interesting too is that a lot of entrepreneurs, restaurant owners, are ridiculously competitive, right? And often they play some sports, or they're fans of some kind of sport or whatever. And if we want to use sports analogies, it's the same thing. when you have the limiting beliefs is obviously when you're not going to be competing, you're not going to be playing the same way. When like we talk about records in any sport, any industry, anything, all-time highs, personal bests, right? If you think that you can't ever reach that, then how the heck are you even going to, you're not even going to attempt it. And your subconscious isn't even going to allow you to attempt it. But when you're striving to do better, when you're striving for something more, when you're striving to achieve something or hit a goal, hit a personal best, win a game, break a record, right? Break a sales record, break a prime cost record, then you have an opportunity because you're actually aiming for that and you're going after that. But it works exactly the same way the other way around. When our self-talk and our mind is such that you're literally telling yourself, like Andrew was saying, I'm never going to get more than 10%. That's all restaurants get. Restaurants can only have a 10% profit margin, period. Right? Just like the guy on your marketing clip.
Yeah, the guy who commented.
That's complete bullshit. Everybody knows. Well, no, not everybody knows. You know.
Or
and
you think you know.
And you think you know because you don't know any better and nobody's taught you any other way or somehow. And the reality is, I'm sure he knows of other restaurants that are much more profitable than he is, but he's not allowing himself to be open enough to go change and do something about that.
Yeah, I said like, oh, how has anyone ever owned multiple locations? Like if they have to work 20 hours per day, well, there's not enough hours in the day to have multiple. So how do they do it? Right? And there are plenty of people that work multiple units, and some multi-unit owners, once they hit a certain point, typically 3+ locations, they work far less in the business than on the business. Why is that?
Absolutely.
Right?
Because they figured it out because they had to, because they have no choice.
Oh, absolutely. They had to. So that's kind of what I wanted to talk about today. And I want to talk about one other thing as well, kind of on this subject, which is that people often, as restaurant owners, are so stuck in the weeds that we don't actually think about the bigger picture at all. And so there's a quote that I basically thought of last night, and sometimes I randomly spew things out and it actually makes sense, believe it or not. So you can't have a highly profitable restaurant without highly profitable restaurant owner habits. And so now, and in accordance with everything we're talking about, I'm not going to say that is 100% true. But I will tell you for about 95% of restaurant owners that I've ever talked to, this would be true. Because how you get to the high profitability is by doing the things that generate the high profits. I'm sure there's somebody somewhere who's just making money hand over fist because they just opened up the right concept in the right location and, just took off or whatever, and they don't know what the hell they're doing. Most people, that's not you. So the way for you to get to a highly profitable restaurant is to pick up what most highly profitable restaurant owners do. And that a lot of it is work on the business instead of in it, right? Most of them will monitor their costs on a daily basis, their sales, their food, their labor. They will pour into their leadership team. They will focus on growing their sales. They will be focused on the key metrics that they need to watch in their business every day, when most restaurant owners that we talk to don't make the money they want. And so we ask them, okay, well, how often are you tracking your sales? How often are you actually looking at your costs? How often are you reviewing your profit and loss statement? How often do you get that? And the answer for all those is like, oh, what do you mean?
Not enough.
Right?
Exactly.
They're not doing nearly any of that stuff. They are in the kitchen. And here's another assumption that some restaurant owners make, is that because things happen a certain way when they were there or when they are there, they feel like it happens that way all of the time. And I asked a guy this the other day who's on one of my webinars. I said, is everyone upselling 100% all the time exactly as they should? And he said, yes. And I'm like, really? Really? Because how do you know when you're not there? And he's like, oh, of course they're going to do it the exact same way as me. I'm like, do you really think so? Because, there's always someone dropping the ball. I'm not even willing to say that in my business there's not someone screwing up right this very second. It's happening. It's part of business. And so it's how we adapt to that and handle it and minimize that possibility as much as possible is how we win over the long term. So That's what I wanted to talk about, is that in a lot of cases, we are the ones that are holding us back, either because we believe certain things that aren't true, because we do the things that are not going to actually move the needle in our business. We're doing the things we feel like we have to, but actually just keep us in survival mode instead of actually doing the things that are going to move us forward. And we often blame the rest of the world for doing better than us, are doing something different than we are, and we just think that's not possible for us, when the only difference between what they are doing and the results they are getting is literally what they are doing, which is different from what you're doing, right? Because here's the thing. If you did the same stuff that they were doing, you'd have the same results for the most part, right?
What's frustrating and beautiful at the same time is how quickly things actually can turn around when you start doing the right things. And when you start doing the simple basics, the foundational things that are not complicated, but they're just not being done. And as soon as they're being done, it opens up the whole business world of your business to completely new realms that you didn't have access to before.
Yep.
So it's doing those profitable habits, those profitable techniques that you put in place, open up the floodgates for profitability right very, very quickly after. Like, I see things turn around with some of our clients to, like, literally within a couple of weeks.
Yep.
We'll implement one thing that they're not doing, and it is the snowball effect that within 2 to 3 weeks after that, then, like, you cannot unsee it. You cannot deny that we did this and it created this, and it literally can happen within weeks. And it's so satisfying to watch.
Yep, absolutely. So for you as a restaurant owner out there, if you're sitting there being like, "Wow, this is all bullshit," I would get you to ask yourself,
"Oh yeah,
what do you think is impossible in your business?" And instead of believing it is impossible, I would suggest that you go and say, "Okay, how could this be possible?" And start thinking about ways that it might be possible, or asking the question, or find someone who might know that answer. In a lot of cases, we probably have free trainings on whatever it is that you're looking for. So let us know too. We can send that over. But I want you to question your assumption, because we often question beliefs, except those that we truly believe, and those we never think to question. Now, that's a quote by Alex Hormozy. And it just goes back to things that we truly believe we never question. We question pieces of information. Like if I told you that you could have a 20% profit margin, most people question that. But they don't question their belief that you can't have more than a 10% profit margin, because they truly believe that. And so what beliefs do you truly believe that you are not questioning that might be holding your business back and you from having the life that you want, and I believe deserve? So guys, thank you for being here. It has been an absolute pleasure. We'll catch you on the next episode.
Bye-bye.
This episode is brought to you by OwnerShift Training, where we help restaurant owners increase their profits while spending more time with their family. And if you want to know exactly what it would take to grow your profit margin to 15% and beyond while spending more time with your family, my team has a few spots open this week for a free 15-minute restaurant assessment call. Just click the book a call link in the description, and we'll show you the exact frameworks we're using to help our clients do this in as little as 6 to 8 weeks. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you on the next episode.